In this lecture, let's explore this macro format. Basically, it is used to create a string, a format string. That's why usually it is used along with a format specifier. So this is a basic syntax. And here you can see that this placeholder will be replaced with a value of this variable. Here you can also use multiple placeholders in the format string to insert multiple values, something like this. So now let's type in this code. Let's say I'll first create the main program. Simplicity's sake, I'm just doing it in online compiler. You can do it in your VS Code IDE. So let's say I have a couple of variables. Now in Rust, actually you use the let keyword to create variables. I'll talk about variables little later, variables and data types. For the time being, you can just consider that the let keyword is used to create variables. So let me create a variable. Let's say name is equal to, I'll store a string value here. Let's say John, and let age is equal to 30. As I said, if you want to print anything, you should use the println macro. Println, that is print with line feed character. So I cannot simply do this. So this is wrong. You cannot print the value of the variable like this. First, you have to create a placeholder using the curly braces inside the double quotes, something like this. And then you can print the value of the variable that prints John. Now, the format macro actually doesn't print anything on the console. It actually creates a string by the arguments you provide, and it returns the newly created string. Suppose if I use format, let's say I'll say name. Actually, format macro creates and returns a string. Let's catch the return value in another variable. Let me call it as let return value or message is equal to. Then let's print the value of the variable message. It is very simple. That prints John here. Now I can add any type of message here. For example, my name is, I'll keep a placeholder, and I'll use a placeholder here, years old. Now there are two placeholders, and if you don't mention any arguments for those placeholders, that will be an error. As you can see, two positional arguments in format string, but no arguments were given. These are also called as positional arguments. Now there are two ways to solve this issue. The first method is you just give comma here and you mention the arguments to match with these positional arguments or placeholders. So I'll just mention first, let's say name, comma, age. The format macro returns a formatted string, replacing those placeholders with actual values of the arguments you provided. Now you may be thinking, what is the need to mention these arguments at the end like this? So why don't we just mention here itself like name and age, and let's get rid of these things. Now this is also possible. So this is also a valid code, and as you can see, it works. This is also called as named placeholder. So this is a named placeholder. Basically, you give a name to this placeholder like this. For example, I can make this as like user name, and I can make this as user age. Here I gave names to the placeholder. This is the name of this placeholder, and this is the name of this placeholder. Then I have to define those names like this. Like here, I have to define those. Username means name, and user age means this age variable. If you compile this code, and it works. And the advantage of giving names to the placeholders like this is you can change the order of these arguments. For example, I can write first user age is equal to age. Later I can write username is equal to name like this. So even though you changed the order of these arguments here, that will not affect these placeholders. So this placeholder will be replaced by the value designated by this name. It won't affect the output. So you can also do something like this. This is called as a named placeholder. Now, if you observe this code statement, it is a very long code statement. So now let's explore how do we refactor this line of code. What you do is, if you think these macros are getting way too lengthy while expressing your message or something, it's better to go to the next line here itself. So what you do is, let me rewrite this format macro. Let's say let message new is equal to, just write the macro like println or format macro or any other print related macros, and open the parenthesis and press enter, that you go to the next line, and let's terminate that with semicolon. Now here you just write the arguments for the format macro or println macro. I'm going to keep this here, comma, come to the next line. Let's say I place the argument, this one here, comma, let's place the next argument here, something like this. So this looks, more professionally written compared to this one. So that is one tip I would like to share. And let me share another tip with you. Now let's say if this message is getting too long. So let's say it's a very long message, something like that. Basically, it doesn't look good. I mean, the message is hidden, and it is a very long line, and so most of the time such lengthy line of code is discouraged, like in the code reviews and all. What you can do here is you can come to the next line wherever you want to break the message. So let's say I'll break the message and I'll come to the next line, something like this. But this is not a correct way of breaking the string. So if I try to run this code, as you can see, sorry, here I have to keep message new. As you can see, the output is distorted. By default, when you break the string like this, here I came to the next line. So Rust by default considers this line feed as well as all these space characters. That's why the output looks distorted here. Now you can come to the next line by keeping a line breaker here. For that, use a backslash character like this, which is called as a line breaker. Now let's compile this, and you'll see that the message is printed correctly. I hope you get some idea about using named placeholders. All these things are not specific to the format, so I can just replace this with println. You can even do with println.